council seat. And I thought, you know, candidates go in front of groups, the groups ask for something, and then they endorse the candidate. And then I realized what was really going to happen is that when the layout gets priorities, I would lay out mine, which were largely in line, and then Wynn would hold me accountable every day of the time. So, 7.5 years later, mayor of my hometown, actually the old St. Augustine is where my parents were married. In this church, my cousin was married. In this church, one of my favorite teachers who taught me religion from 10th, 11th, and 12th grade sings in the choir. And we're really at the crossroads of a growing city. And in the crossroads of a growing city, there are a lot of growing pains. And what I said last week is just after I raised my hand to God to take the oath of office, that I inherit the successes of the past, the failures of the past, the overdue promises of the past, but most importantly, I inherit the great expectations of a deserving people. So, humbly, to listen, to learn, but to also act. In 7.5 years in the council, I've had the opportunity to chair the Economic Development Committee, where we have focused on development projects and affordable housing. I've had the opportunity to work hand in hand with when the focus was on recreation and programs. I've had the opportunity to serve on Metro's board and fight to make sure that people who have made mistakes in their lives and served their debt to society can have the opportunity to have good jobs with good wages so that they can afford to receive sounds minor, right? Frank, very serious. And I drove through the neighborhood and I realized that there was a whole lot of buildings that had been abandoned, boarded up, lighted, dark. And our bus drivers were driving around. And that's why there were rocks being thrown. I called the people in the government to the table and said, what's going on? Why does Parkway Overlook look like this? And why can't it be productive housing for deserving Washingtonians? Now, a lot of people didn't have a lot of answers at the time, but I'm pleased to say for the first time in many years that there is hope at Parkway Overlook, that the District of Columbia is in control of it, that we will work with our housing authority to make sure that we are on the way to having quality, safe, affordable housing at Parkway Overlook. Let me share with you, I had the opportunity in the last days to interview a lot of people who are anxious like I am for a fresh start in the District of Columbia. And I asked a woman, we've been talking about homelessness, and I asked a lot of questions, but one question was this. I've been very troubled by our retreat from Housing First policy, where we put all our energy and money into shelter that was dangerous and not safe. And we retreated from policies that were working that said, if you have a house, then you can focus on any other issue that led to homelessness. And I asked the woman, do you think given all that's going on in the district and our budget, can we afford to go back to housing first strategy? Can we go back to a housing first model in the district? And she looked at me, she did not blink, and she said, we can't afford not to. You're right. We made a commitment to end chronic homelessness by 2016. Can we do it? We really measure senior homelessness in the district of Columbia. I know we can do that too. It seems a daunting issue, I know, especially on cold nights like this when we drive by and we see our neighbors on the street. We're all reminded the great responsibility that we have to work to make sure that we are indeed our brother's keepers, so that we can do better with homelessness. So I'm here today to tell you, and I hope that you can tell when some of you heard my speech, that it's time for us to roll up our sleeves and go back to the strategies that work. It's my job not to sell you pie in the sky, but to really sell you on practical programs that every day we work hard to chip away at our most pressing problems. Now, a lot of us in this city, and our residents especially, can be proud of the long way that we have come. I don't think anybody is nostalgic for the bad old days of Washington when we couldn't pay our bills, when we had 400 homicides a year, we were the butt of every joke on national television. Nobody wants those days back. But we all have a responsibility to share the progress that we have made with everybody and always more the progress. So, we're going to get to talking about housing in a little bit, but as I like to say, if you ain't got no job, you can't afford no housing, right? And if you ain't got no good job, you can't afford no housing in the new job.
She failed English evidently. Said she failed English evidently.
I think she was just,
what I realized is that our hardest to employ residents who have the most barriers, they don't need a one-size-fits-all strategy to get it into work. And we have committed about $100 million every year in this government. That is kind of like that. Kind of one-size-fits-all. If you don't have a job, you go here and they will give you this. It's also kind of one-size-fits-all because we put out a big blanket, a big net to say, nonprofit, if you want to help us get people in jobs, then we'll give you some money. And then we don't hold them accountable. And so part of my strategy is to refocus that $100 million and make sure that we are, in fact, holding all of our providers accountable for helping our residents get work. Now, we have some good paying jobs in our own government. Over 30,000 people work for the District of Columbia, and about 2/3 of them don't live in the District of Columbia. And we also know this, that many of our residents, like the federal government and the private sector, are going to be looking to retire in some years. So we're going to have good jobs available in our government because many people are moving on to their well-earned retirement. We want to make sure we're training and getting in line for those jobs, our residents. You can also call it a public works academy. You could also call it Get Ready for Metro Jobs Academy. You could also call it Get Ready for the Watson Jobs Academy. Because what it will do is make sure that our residents have the skills, life skills, hard skills, that will get them prepared for those jobs as they become available. So we are going to make sure that the framework for that DCW Academy is ready to launch in the first 100 days of Bowser administration. So the thing I like about Wynn said, well, we have these jobs because we're paying about $3 billion us ratepayers to these Watson tunnels over the next many years in the district. And we have to make sure, and I really want to acknowledge the action of Wynn, of making sure that not only the members of the city council, but the board members jobs. I realized that our Department of Human Resources and the Metro Department of Human Resources didn't talk at all. I realized that we weren't actually training DC residents to drive buses, and that we're paying a lot of money and hiring about 1,000 operators to operate the new Silver Line. And our residents weren't getting those jobs or passing the test to get the jobs. So I'm going to convince you that our academy will change that. Our academy. And we want to make sure that we have a more seamless connection between our schools, between our community college, and between real jobs for these residents. But let us also remember that we have to focus not only on the right now, but on the future and how we grow this city. I'm proud to preside over a government that's growing, but we can't take it for granted. We have to attract the energy. We have to be leaders in this region, and that's really what's going to set our administration apart. Now, I'm sure you've heard of a commitment that I've also made. It starts with 100 and it ends with billions, and that's for affordable housing every year. To which I said, oh, the mayor's going to look good. And we're going to figure out how to get to that $100 million. I had, as I was thinking that we need a fresh start on these housing issues, our priority is affordable housing. Our priority is exiting people from shelter. And who better to lead our efforts than a woman who has produced quality, affordable, and transitional housing in this city for decades. And Polly Donaldson is going to be the next. And people who won't fight the mayor or her vision, right? Sometimes people, they want to fight you and say, well, you can't do that, Val. Just go and tell them you didn't mean it. And so I've had the opportunity over the years to hear from people in the advocate community who really get it. The board that gets the issue from the advocacy side gets the issue from the government side. So I had the opportunity to coach a woman to lead these fiscal policy reviews, and I'm glad that she's reading from the morning. And we're leading our cluster for the human services is a woman that I had come. I keep saying I have these women in leadership. That people who have been here and put their heart and soul into building the District of Columbia would be pushed out of the District of Columbia and would be left out of our progress. And the very single biggest reason I got in this race is because I knew that residents had to have a mayor that would stand in that breach who cared about that. Who cared about Washington for Washington and making sure that everybody willing to work for it would be able to live and raise their families right here in the district of Columbia. I also know that mayors don't change markets unless they're really bad. But they literally try and get out of control. And that part of the pressures on our housing and our housing crisis is really we directly from our successes, and that's why we see housing prices go up. I've been pleased on the council to support legislation that will enforce its demand affordable housing on all of our public land in the district. To look at the Section 8 housing or low-income tax credit housing that is going to expire in the coming years, and to establish a strike force to come up with recommended solutions to deal with it before the crisis starts. That we're recognizing what I think too few people recognize. That the issue of affordable housing is not just about creating new units, but preserving the units that we have. It is rental housing. It is also housing that people own. I tell people all the time, I live in Northeast in Ridge Park. I live in a house I paid $125,000 for, and I love it very much. The best decision I ever made. But when I look on my block, I see the diversity, and that diversity of incomes. And I know I just lost my neighbor who lived there for many years, and that house that was very affordable for her will probably sell for something that won't be affordable to many people in the District of Columbia. So when we think about preservation, we have to think about the totality of our housing stock and be committed to it. So, Holly, we're counting on you to be the strike force. We're counting on you to look at single-family housing and for the senior citizens that are living in it, and it's affordable to them to continue to find ways for a single-family rehab program and all of our programs around utilities to continue to make that housing affordable for them. Let me also mention that there's another woman here who's just been tremendous to us on my council staff during my transition, and now in the executive office of the mayor, who has really made this night for me possible with when, and that's Lindsay Parker, who is representing me today. You have a mayor who hates guns. If it was up to me, we would say I swear to protect the Constitution and what the courts say, but I will do it in the most restrictive way. That would make our government incent the gun manufacturers to do the right thing. I work with our chief around that issue. I don't know where we buy our guns right now, but I'll find out. But more than that on public safety, when I'm going to tell you what was also very important to me. We have been privileged in our city and lucky with the hard-fought trust that we have gained between the police and our communities. And I think that's why we don't see some of the problems that we see in other cities. But we know that that's fragile, and we have to feed it every day. We have to hold our police accountable for doing the right thing. We have to support peaceful protests. And when young people come to us, I really want people to come to me with very practical solutions. They want to know the data. They want the police complaints to be transparent and visible. They want to know that I'm watching, and I am watching. I won't stand by in a city that doesn't tolerate to hear the complaints of its people, and so we will stay focused on that. But you might have noticed the way we structured our transition when we talked about public safety. I didn't have a police person chair the committee. I didn't have a fire person chair a committee. I had a woman who has been fighting to protect children, and I had a woman who has been fighting to protect people from domestic violence in their homes. Because we are going to show public safety from the victim's point of view. So here's my challenge to you. When it gets tough, then it will, I need you there. When you have to fight this council member's project, everyone, so that we can get to our affordable housing, I need you there. So we have to have tough conversations around building transitional housing, tough conversations about closing DC General, tough conversations about revitalizing Berry Farm. I need you there. And that is why I ran for mayor, and that is why I need you with me every step of the way. God bless.